You can never guarantee that team members want to move to a new agency along with the rent roll, but that's absolutely an asset if they are interested in doing that. I think if you're building your rent roll, really it's on focusing on getting the best possible fee income. And as much as you can, choose your landlords, clients that are prepared to spend money on maintenance, that understand that you're the expert, and when you give them advice, they should listen to it around whether it's a lease renewal or choice of tenant, or whether it's a maintenance item or something else. That we want clients, of course, ideally that say, hey, I'll leave it up to you. And that's the ideal scenario. My rent roll had plenty that weren't like that, for sure. Most rent rolls do. But yeah, I think if you're chasing the discount seeker, then they're the landlord that, of course, won't want to spend money on maintenance. And they're the problems. They're the ones that take up 80% of your workload for 20% of your revenues.
Welcome back to another episode of the Property Management Podcast. Thank you so much for being here. Today, we're diving into the world of owning a real estate agency and why it might be one of the most rewarding yet challenging decisions you'll ever make. So whether you're a property manager thinking about stepping up and going out on your own, or a business owner who's wondering if maybe it's time to sell your rent roll, well, today's episode will speak to you. We'll be discussing the ins and outs of agency ownership, what it takes to build a sustainable business, the hurdles you'll face, and why it can be so worth it when done right. Now, if you've been following my journey for a while, you'll know that I recently made the decision to sell my rent roll, and I couldn't have done it without the help of Rob Honeycombe. Rob is an absolute powerhouse in the industry, starting his career as a commission-only sales agent at Rain & Horn Carina in Brisbane in 1991. He spent most of his career selling, negotiating, and doing what he does best, helping property businesses grow and succeed. What makes Rob truly unique, though, is his extensive experience as an agency owner and rent roll broker. Rob ran a residential agency for 27 years, buying and selling rent rolls along the way. He's personally bought 8 rent rolls and sold a couple as well. So when it came time for me to take that leap to sell mine, Rob was the one that I trusted to guide me through the process. And his expertise has been invaluable. So let's dive into this episode where Rob is going to share his personal story, the challenges he's faced along the way, and the lessons he's learned both in rent roll broking and agency sales. If you've ever thought about selling a rent roll, buying one, or even owning an agency yourself, this episode is filled with incredible insights from someone who has truly walked the walk. So let's dive on in and hear all about Rob's journey and why owning a real estate agency might be the best move for you. Rob, thank you so much for joining me on the Property Management Podcast. I'm really grateful that you could be here. Please share with our audience a little bit about yourself and how you got started doing what you do now.
Sure, Kylie. Yeah, great to be here. I was a real estate professional for over 30 years, and most of that time had my own agency, a residential agency here in Brisbane City. And the last 2 years since I sold that agency, I've moved into the brokerage space. So now working with real estate agency owners, selling their businesses and their rent rolls.
And you've actually helped me sell my rent roll as well. So yeah, you've done a great job. And it is a big job selling rent rolls as well, and we can dive into that a bit later. But let's start with our topic today, which I think this is a really great topic. And you and I can both attest to the value of owning real estate businesses and the challenges that come with that as well. So let's dive straight on in and talk about why should someone own a real estate business?
Look, I think a lot of us take it for granted, perhaps, and we don't know, having come through the profession, whether it's property management or sales into agency ownership. But if we were to step outside and look at how other small businesses run, we really got it pretty good in many ways. It's, for example, the stock that we sell is our client appointments that we have. We don't have to fill our corner store with the goods that we're going to sell. I grew up in a business. My family had tractors and cars. My dad had to fill the showroom with very expensive equipment to stock before he could make a sale. So for us, that really the opportunity to get up and running, that's fairly affordable. We don't have to finance this enormous amount of stock that we've got to sell. We don't have goods on the shelf that are expiring and have to be thrown out. So our appointments to act are the key, and really it's a terrific position to be in as a business owner.
Absolutely. And then even getting started in real estate, it's a lot easier than, say, doing an apprenticeship or going off to university where you've got to spend 3 or 4 years getting that degree before you can actually even start earning an income. With real estate, getting into real estate, even though when I started 15 years ago, it was a 2 day course, now it's a little bit more detailed, and as it should be to get in. So, but that's another advantage to owning a real estate business. And then we've got the cash flow as well.
Yeah, and I think, look, on that entry, barriers to entry, we charge the largest professional fee many of our clients ever pay. That, yeah, you're right, we don't go to university for 10 years or more for some of what a surgeon might do, or an experienced barrister or someone that charges those sort of fees. So we're very fortunate to the entry. Then the cash flow, yeah, I think particularly in rent rolls, again, we take that for granted, how stable and able to be predicted income is for our business.
And even if we lose one management, which we don't like doing, and I'm sure you're the same as me, I don't like losing any managements. But when you do lose one, it's not the end of the world, is it?
No, and that's what makes us different to a lot of other service businesses. For example, say an architect that has big developer clients, suddenly the project finishes or the developer changes direction and wants to use someone else, they might lose 20% or 30% of their business income overnight. For us, if you've got a diverse rent roll, a lot of individual clients, no, you don't want to lose a client, you don't want to lose a landlord, but it's not going to really dent the income too badly. And I think that's why we love rent rolls and the predictable cash flow, but it's also banks. Banks love rent rolls for that predictable income and that security that they have in their lending.
Yeah, which is great as well. It's as we're building your rent roll is an asset, and you can leverage that asset as well for borrowing capacity as well. Whether you want to buy more rent rolls or whether it's to get money to finance something else, a new office, a buy office, buy a home, whatever that looks like, you've got the equity in that to be able to leverage. But then also the big advantage I think is a lot of small business owners don't put a lot or don't have a lot of spare cash to put away to build up their super funds. When you sell your rent roll, you get a large chunk of money, and that potentially is can replace your super.
Yeah, again, there's a lot of service businesses where the minute you stop working, you've got nothing to sell really, whether it's a plumber or a medical practitioner, lots of other business service providers that really the day they retire, that's it. For us, over our real estate career, we're gradually building that rent roll up, then absolutely it's a saleable asset and very much that's part of people's retirement plans.
Absolutely. And obviously, you have to be smart with that along the way and not get yourself in too much debt that or get into tax debt is a big thing I think that a lot of businesses struggle with if they don't have a great accountant and don't plan for that. That sort of thing can come up. But there is a lot of challenges, like it's not all poppy fields and roses, and there's a lot of challenges along the way. And for me personally, building a team and keeping a team and that leadership aspect has been the biggest challenge for me. And it's probably, if I'm completely honest, it's the reason why I got out.
Sure.
But now in hindsight, I think if you can overcome that challenge of people and teams, it's really a business that you can thrive in long term.
Yeah, I think it's having the tough conversations, Kylie, whether that's with your clients or your team members and taking them on the journey with you. And I think if I could do it again, and I had over 20 years of agency ownership and leadership, if I could do it again, I think I'd probably be a little bit more open and upfront with my team members. I often thought it was odd that I had people leave me and go to work for someone that was not talked about as a bad boss or a tough boss, but I think that clarity of direction, that there's no vague instruction from some of those tough principals, the licensees. In my office, maybe I was too collaborative at times, and I think team members sometimes like a strong leader. If I could do it again, yeah, I think maybe I'd step up and maybe be a little bit firmer in many ways in terms of the direction the business was going.
Yeah, absolutely. I probably would agree with that as well. For my business personally, I totally would agree with that. And what do you think it takes then, after all your experiences and what you see now working as a rent roll broker and stepping into a lot of other businesses and working with a lot of other agency owners? What do you think it takes to run a successful agency in the modern era or this current era that we're in right now?
I think it's a real challenge to be too closely on the tools yourself. I think you've got to have at least some part of your time and mental space to be able to look at the business and work on it rather than in it. I know that's a bit of a cliche, but it really does require some strong leadership and clarity around vision and where the business is going. I think there's a lot more aspects to people leadership now than there was even perhaps 10 years ago. You've really got to bring a team in, a culture that's supportive, And I think probably that the best agencies I see now are where the owners of the agency are quite close to the coalface without actually dealing with the clients themselves. So I think it's that balance of team leadership, but absolute working knowledge of what's going on at the coalface without doing the work yourself. That's probably what I'm seeing today, the most successful agencies.
So, what are those business owners doing? What's their roles in the agencies then if they're not on the tools day to day, like doing the property management? Is it around that leadership
It
piece?
is, and part of it is about sometimes the property manager is having a hard time with that landlord and they just need the boss to step in and say, I've got it, I'll call them. That's when they feel supported. That's when they feel that there's actually a safety net for them. And they're far more courageous to have the tough conversations if they know the boss isn't going to run away when there's a client that's cranky. For the boss to pick up the phone and make that call to say, hey, I understand you've had an issue here. Tell me what's happening and how we can resolve it. But sometimes that's a circuit breaker that's needed for the client, but also I think for the property manager or the salesperson, if it's a situation for them, it's to know that the boss is prepared to step up and take some of that tough conversation on. I hate to say it, but a lot of principals hide away in the corner office, and you know what? Guilty at times. I did some of that too. When you're getting landlords are cranky and people aren't happy about something, it's just too tempting to run away and try to leave it to your team. And the good bosses, they front up. They're there for their team and their clients.
Beautiful. Yeah, I think that is really important and probably not enough agency owners do that. And when you do talk to property managers, the ones that are the happiest are the ones that have got really supportive bosses with them
Sure.
along the way. So what about when it comes to selling a rent roll then? What do you see if somebody's sitting here listening and they're in the process of, they've started their agency, they're building it up, they've got an exit strategy? What are the key things that they need to have in place with their rent roll or their business when it comes to looking at exiting and selling that asset off? Are you feeling overwhelmed and thinking about selling your rent roll? Don't worry, you're not alone, and HDNU is here to help. Whether you're ready to sell now or you just want to plan for the future, the friendly and approachable team at HDNU makes the process simple and stress-free. Hello, yes please. With over 30 years of expertise, they're not just about crunching the numbers. They genuinely care about helping you maximize your agency's value and get the best outcome for you. Their sales readiness bundle is like having a trusted advisor by your side. They'll work closely with you to assess your agency's key factors, create an easy to understand heat map of your strengths and opportunities, and then sit down with you for a 90-minute workshop to guide you on what to do next. They'll look at everything from rent roll earnings and rent arrears to compliance and team performance and explain it all in plain English. If you're planning to sell soon, HDNU can even handle the whole process for you, from finding qualified buyers to negotiating the deal. Their friendly, professional team takes the stress out of selling so you can feel confident every step of the way. And to get started, simply book in a meeting with the team today. Their link is in the show notes. They're here to help you move forward with confidence. Let's be real. Compliance is one of the biggest challenges in property management, and it can be overwhelming to navigate. It's time-consuming, stressful, and let's face it, one missed compliance check could lead to serious legal and financial risks, and no one wants that. That's where Sensor Insure comes in. Powered by smart sensor technology, it offers highly competitive building and landlord insurance, bundled with an ecosystem of smart safety devices. These include tamper-proof smoke alarms and water leak detectors with automated remote testing and a 24/7 accessible audit trail. Yes, you heard me right. Sensor Insure is a game changer. It's always on and integrates seamlessly with your trust platform to streamline processes and provides live reporting across your entire rental portfolio. This ensures you're always meeting compliance requirements, giving you total peace of mind. No more waking up in the middle of the night stressed or worried that you've missed something or your team has missed something. So whether you're looking to improve your processes and efficiency, reduce stress, or protect your agency from risk, Sensor Insure has you covered. You really should see how it works. I totally encourage you to book in a free demo today by heading to sensorglobal.com or the show notes to learn more about their solutions and how they can transform your compliance game.
Look, I think it's a buyer of a rent roll is looking for a tidy portfolio in the terms of all the documentation's been done, the client communications are clear, routine inspections are being done. Nothing really mind-blowing that surprises in any of that. Clearly, rent rolls need property managers, so if there's team members there that are engaged with their client base, their landlords, know the properties, and they are looking to continue on, and that's a great asset to the business as well. So you can never guarantee that team members want to move to a new agency along with the rent roll, but that's absolutely an asset if they are interested in doing that. I think if you're building your rent roll, really it's on focusing on getting the best possible fee income. And as much as you can, choose your landlords, clients that are prepared to spend money on maintenance, that understand that you're the expert, and when you give them advice, they should listen to it around whether it's a lease renewal or choice of tenant, or whether it's a maintenance item or something else. That we want clients, of course, ideally that say, hey, I'll leave it up to you. And that's the ideal scenario. My rent roll had plenty that weren't like that, for sure. Most rent rolls do. But yeah, I think if you're chasing the discount seeker, then they're the landlord that, of course, won't want to spend money on maintenance. And they're the problems. They're the ones that take up 80% of your workload for 20% of your revenues.
Yeah.
Try to avoid them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess you and I can now look back in hindsight at some of the mistakes we made, some of the successes we had. So I guess if you were to start a rent roll today or start another agency today, what is some of the things that you would be implementing? What are some of the advice you would be doing, to start again?
I wouldn't discount my fee $1 because I think the client that really wants to push on that is the problem client. I'd be certainly making sure my team members knew that I had their back through every communication. I wouldn't be a property manager or a salesperson, but I'd be right across what those guys were doing in my team. So I knew the challenges they were facing, could relate to them, was there to support them. And I think really geography and rent rolls is talked about quite a lot. I think more and more buyers of rent rolls are focusing on how widespread the properties are. So ideally sticking to a fairly narrow geographic patch close to where the agency is or the operation is run from. And I think that really maximises the value that you're building there. So there's a patience required there, and sometimes that can mean bleeding in cash while you're getting up and running or not getting the returns you'd like to get as quickly, but it will pay off in the long run.
There's two questions. Is how long should you hang on to a rent roll? What's the ideal duration? And I also am starting to believe that having a larger rent roll is not always the way to go as well, because it seems to me from my experience that the smaller rent rolls are still really valuable and in terms of cash flow, but they're also really valuable when you come to sell them as well with the multipliers that are around at the moment.
Yeah, I guess this is a bit like what house would suit you or what home would you want to buy. It's about what you're looking for yourself. And I probably was in that middle ground of agency where I was too big to be across everything that was happening, but not big enough to get a lot of those economies of scale that the larger agencies can get. So I think there's some very strong returns for the larger agencies because they've got centralised administration and those cost efficiencies of premises and admin staff, etc. But yeah, smaller agencies for sure, the service offering, whether the business owner is quite close to the clients, that can be pretty hard to compete with. There to pick up the phone and ring the landlord and they've got those relationships. That service offering is very strong. But as a business owner, which do you aim for? I think it probably comes back more to what lifestyle you want, what debt you want, what are you prepared to take on?
Amazing. I've thought about this question a lot and I've been asked it a lot in the last couple of months. Would you start another agency?
I love selling, always did, and I stepped away from it for most of my agency ownership career. And in hindsight, that was a mistake because it's the part of my business I always enjoyed most. I started selling real estate at 21, and so that's what I do now. I list and sell businesses, and so no, I've had my time as a business owner and a leader. I think team leadership, I loved it, absolutely loved it up until I didn't love it. In fact, I couldn't even say I liked it, and that was the moment I knew it was time to sell.
Yeah, I can relate to that. That was exactly the moment that I had as well. When I was, I just knew that I couldn't employ another person. I was definitely done. So that is good advice, I guess, and good perspective for anyone to have as well who may have sold and is thinking about coming back into the agency. Just on that topic that you just mentioned then about being a selling principal, do you think if you start a rent roll as a selling principal that the sales will be affected, that your ability to sell or the success as a sales agent will be affected?
I always think we're best at what we enjoy doing. So if you enjoy leading a team, running a business, then do that. Focus on that. If you enjoy selling real estate, focus on that. And if you need to bring someone in to lead your PM team, to even lead your administrative team, I was very fortunate to have a business partner for many years in my agency that took care of a lot of the back of house so that I could be out there dealing with buyers and sellers as a sales agent in some period. So I think knowing what your strengths are and playing to those, a lot of us get into agency ownership just because we've kind of gone down that path of, all right, well, I've been a salesperson for 5 years, so I've saved some money. Maybe this is what I should do. Or I'm a senior PM, I want to have my own business, so this is what I'll do. But I think we really need to consider business ownership as a different category and business management as a different category in terms of skill set, because I wasn't always great at financials, for example. I had to go away and do a course to understand how to do my P&Ls properly and understand cash flow, why it was so important that I had money set aside for tax bills and things like that. That doesn't naturally come to a lot of us as practitioners. So business ownership or leadership is certainly a different category.
And you just touched on something. I think that's really important. For me, when I started my business, I wanted some lifestyle freedom. I wanted to be able to pick my kids up from school and drop them to school. I was working in the media, so I was working weekends, working late night if the story broke. So I didn't, and I was at the network's beck and call. So I went into our real estate business for that lifestyle freedom to be there for my kids and have my weekends, watch their sport. But I had no idea what I was doing, no idea how to run a business, no idea about financials, no idea how to be a leader. I didn't even know any of the property management documents and forms. And I think back to those days, every one of them would have been completely wrong. I would have stuffed everything up. But I guess where I'm going with this is that some of the training that we do now, maybe we need to shift it into that, how to run real estate businesses. There's not a lot of training. There's not a lot of content out there online even on, how to, and we rely on a lot of experts to tell us. And sometimes those experts have never owned an agency either. So they don't know the intricacies of running agencies either. So you sometimes get lumped with some not great advice either. So yeah, I wonder if that's something that we need to be considering as an industry, just off topic.
I agree entirely. And I think we are seeing Queensland, for example, REIQ have a course coming up that's around strategic planning for business owners. So why haven't we had that before? Great question. And I think the recognition that you've got to develop your skills over and above real estate agent skills. Yes, I know how to sell a house, or yes, I know how to collect rent and manage tenancies and breach tenants and the whole process. But yeah, to understand the cash flows and HR and all those other issues you've got to deal with. It's a broad skill set, and I don't think our learning continues in that space when we take the keys of agency ownership.
Absolutely. That shouldn't deter us though, because I think that is, and if anyone's listening, please take on some of our advice and get that training that you need on those other aspects of running an agency as well. So yeah, I think we've shared some really great, valuable advice for anyone listening in that position right now. So one of the traditions on this podcast is that my guests share some personal development, whether that's a resource, book, podcast, something that you think will help our listeners learn and grow.
Sure. Yeah, look, I can jump in with an easy one there. I'm currently reading a book called Never Split the Difference, Chris Voss, which is all about negotiating. So this guy's an FBI, or has been an FBI hostage negotiator. So quite literally a matter of life and death, whether he got his negotiations right. And I do think, particularly in real estate sales, we get paid an enormous fee. It is enormous, but I think we're worth every cent if we're a great negotiator. And that's a topic, again, where there's not a lot of formal training, but I think you can learn a lot from some of those resources. So yeah, Chris Voss, Never Split the Difference. Great book. Great.
Love it. Somebody else recommended that to me recently, actually, so I'll have to write that down
There you go.
as soon as I get off the podcast, because if I don't write these things down now, they're in one ear and out the other. It's menopause brain for me. So now, how can our audience connect with you further? What's the best place for them to find you?
Yeah, of course. I'm on LinkedIn and Facebook, Rob Honeycombe with an E on the end of Honeycombe, and love to help, obviously. And look, I try to share some good information, LinkedIn and other places, so that people can learn a little bit about agency ownership and buying rent rolls, some of the things to look for. And of course, yeah, if you're at the other end of your career, preparing for a sale and what it means to go through that process.
Yeah, absolutely. I can totally attest to the value of your services. So, yeah, thank you so much for joining me.
Absolute pleasure.
If you're ready to be a super organised, focused and productive property manager, buckle up because Colmio is about to revolutionise the way that you work. Colmio is the driving force behind property management excellence in residential real estate. Now picture this, a comprehensive end-to-end system designed to be the beating heart of your property management tasks, manage your properties, owners and tenants, and handle payments, inspections, and even marketing listings without leaving the platform. Colmio is designed to be an all-in-one solution to all your property management needs. And here's the game changer. Colmio isn't just software. It's been awarded the most innovative PropTech Scale Up in 2023. Yes, you heard it right. Colmio has been recognised for their groundbreaking approach to property management software. How good is that? So property managers, whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out, dive into the future of property management with Colmio. You can book in a demo with the team today and go in their weekly draw for a Prezi gift card worth $100. All you need to do is to head to the link colmio.com/thatpropertymum, and Colmio is Kolmeo. Can I ask you a quick favour before you leave this episode? Now, we all know how important reviews are for businesses these days, and mine is no different. If you could spare just a minute to follow, rate and review this podcast, it would mean a lot to me. In fact, what would get me super excited is if you share this podcast with someone in the industry who you think might need to hear some of the episodes right now. And if you'd like to find out more about working with me or any of the products I have to help you start, grow or scale your property management business, head to my website, thatpropertymum.com.au, or check out the links in the show notes.